Hey, everybody. I am Sharif Aman,
And I'm Jenna Barbosa.
and this is Love Speak Revolution.
Love me to where you're at. Hello. We are here
Yes.
again, Sharif. So, Love Speak Revolution podcast, right? So, our mission, you guys, is to revolutionize the idea that you have to have it all together to be able to experience Jesus' love, no matter if you're a believer in Jesus or not. That's what our mission is.
Yeah.
So we are very excited to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So we're so glad you're here with us.
Yes, we are very glad you're here with us. What are we speaking, jamming? What are we crocking?
Crocking. Inside joke for you podcaster followers.
What are we crocking today?
What's crocking?
What's crocking?
Oh, man. So today we are talking about communication.
Oh.
Oh, the big C word.
Yes.
Communication. It's a doozy, right?
Yeah. Communication is massive, as we see. Not just like everything that's going on now, but like throughout the span of like history, the lack of communication. We definitely see like the breakdown of communication culturally, like within cultures, truly understanding words, understanding people, instead of taking such surface in the moment. I've known that, like, I've learned that communication is so deep with when you're having a conversation with somebody. There's so many different components to communication. There's like listening.
Yeah.
Unconditionalism.
Yeah.
You know, love is even tied in with that. Awareness. We're going to keep coming back around to these words, right?
Yeah.
Gosh, we could even break listening down in
Yeah,
components, like how you listen and
active listening to respond versus listening to respond.
Yeah.
Like listening to understand.
Yep.
I love how you said understand the words and then understand people. And I think if you connect those two dots, understand words from people. Like we have an understanding of what the words mean, what the language is. But when we keep that isolated from the person it's coming from, then we are, how many times do we, are we a people that like, I'm going to die on the hill of semantics? Like what, well, what you really mean because you said this.
Right.
Is X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Whereas, okay, well, yes, technically that word means that, and words are important so much. But when you look at, okay, who did that come from?
Yeah.
Context is king, right? Yeah. Who is speaking those words? Where are they coming from? Are they coming from a hurt, defensive place? Are they coming from a vulnerable space? Are they coming from, an excited space? Like, I think that's a big part of communication that we have got to really connect the dots of what am I hearing from who?
Right.
And put those things together. And I think that that's going to be a really next step in the right direction.
I think like this spirit's like really hitting me. Like, but even before you can do that, a lot of people pull from their own mid-range self. They're not even pulling from their own root system because they deny their own root system. Everybody's gorging themselves on the fruit.
Oh, God, sir.
Right? The fruit is just the byproduct of the root system and the nutrients that the roots get, water, dirt, everything, and it goes into the fruit. Well, everybody's gorging themselves on the fruit and thinking that's the life of it. That's a part of it. That's a byproduct of the root system, but nobody's paying attention to the root system. So in listening, if I'm listening to you, that means I'm stepping outside of myself and totally stepping into your root system and understanding your root system. So that wisdom in itself knows that I'm going to come unarmed and I'm willing to know If I don't know what your root system is and I'm just taking you surface, that's when, if you come at me out of your brokenness, if you're reacting to me and I don't know, okay, this is coming from a place of hurt. This is coming from I know the root system. Then you're not going then you'll just react back. But if I'm coming out of an understanding of my own root system and then I'm coming unarmed, it's like, if you look fruit to fruit, you don't get it.
Yeah.
If you look root system to root system, that's a totally different depth of understanding somebody in communication. And then you're actually listening, right? Responding, even if you're accused, even if, communication, somebody comes at you, somebody has a problem with you, relationships, marriage, children, it's not the fact that you need to be defensive, because that doesn't get you anywhere, because the importance is not, no, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. The importance is they are triggered. That's the importance. Something happened, something that was said. I might not have said something like we were discussing, like some smells can trigger somebody. Places can trigger tastes, like, the way that you speak can trigger somebody. If you speak with a higher passion or a lower, just, there's so many things, right? If you're not willing to step out of yourself and really step into that person's space and into their root system, then you don't really have a foundation of understanding you don't have a solid foundation to be able to be like, okay, I'm not taking offense to this. This hurts, but I'm not going to be offended by this, because this isn't about me, really. Because the root system goes deeper. The triggering might be about me, but the depth of where this is coming from, so I just think
that's good.
I think it's more than just talking to somebody.
It's understanding them. And so kind of what I hear you saying is that those root systems are our own experiences, our own fears, our own beliefs, our own feelings. That root system is what is underneath, just like roots are, and they go deep, and they go literally from birth, because we've been growing and developing since we were born. And so all of those things are root systems. And so those beliefs, those experiences, those understandings, feelings, and all of that, those produce certain fruit in our life, right? Because if the roots are bad, the fruit doesn't produce, right? When we're talking about like actual plants. But even if what we've gone through is hard and what we term bad, they still are producing something. And so we produce the fruit of response. We produce the fruit of processing, how we process that triggers, how we are triggered, what that reminds us of. You doing that reminds me of something in my root system, in my beliefs and my experiences. And so being able to sit in that, what I hear you saying is it's important to understand people's root systems, people's experiences. Hey, where is that coming from? Right? And help me. And a big term that I use a lot in teaching conflict resolution with my clients is help me understand what you mean by blank.
Exactly.
And that phrase it's invitation, it's partnership, we're partnering in this conflict to be able to understand what went awry there, right? And so it's saying, okay, you said something that I'm feeling defensive about. I need to get clarity, right? So that's what our responsibility is in communication, is if I have confusion about what you meant about something, I am therefore responsible to get clarity on that. Right? Confusion does not produce healthy relationship.
Right.
Clarity does.
Yeah.
And so whenever I look at you and say, okay, you did that, you're doing this, you said that, okay, so, and that's making me confused about where I stand with you right now or what's happening, then I need to say, okay, help me. I'm struggling a little bit with how you said that, or your tone of voice right now, or help me understand like what's going on in your processing. And half the time, the person's like, oh, I'm just like all excited about it, or I'm just,
Right.
kind of a little annoyed at, the circumstances, or I'm just, really in my head about something, and I think that that's where you said if we really can learn to get outside of ourselves, it's going to be so beneficial, because a lot of the time we internalize things as a self-protective measure to say, okay, wait a minute, something's happening. What does that mean about me?
Yeah.
And so then I need to then process it in a way of defending what that perception of what that means about me is.
Yeah.
So half the time, I think a lot of conflict and confusion comes from assumption and lack of information.
Yeah.
And then we're kind of creating our own chaos in that as a way to protect, hide, control, all the things.
Yeah. We're taught to like, again, sensual culture, to like go with what you feel, and to defend yourself, stand up for yourself, which I'm not saying like those things are bad, right? Because we want to go in balance, but it's not really taught to like, it's easy. Like if you're at a tree, it's easier to like, I feel like I keep going back to like the fruit. Everybody's just looking at the fruit, picking the fruit. It's easier. What's not easy is to understand the root system, because to get to the root of a tree, first of all, you can't see it. You don't know where the roots go, how deep the roots go. And to get to the roots, you have to dig carefully, right? Because there's other smaller roots. So it's going to take time to get to the root system. But once you understand where the root system goes and how it functions, you understand that tree more. You'll respond differently to the tree instead of just taking the fruit.
Yeah.
And gorging on the fruit, that doesn't really help. That's the byproduct of caring for the tree.
Yeah.
Of understanding the tree is it's the gift of here's harvest, right? And we've got to do that with people, and we don't do that on any on any level, really truly understanding. And I always talk based out of me, because I used to talk over you. If we're fighting, you don't get a word in at all. That's a defense mechanism for me, because I grew up in where I was getting yelled at for hours. I was getting yelled at for hours and I couldn't get a word in, and abuse, toxicity, like everything. So the little boy, got scared. And then I would just use the big man to be yelling and screaming and not letting you get a word in, because if you got a word in, you're hurting me. Well, it took me years of therapy to truly understand that I was a terrible communicator. And it was actually a shock to me, because I'm a singer and a writer, and I would write like beautiful music, and my therapist broke it down, right?
Like, wait a minute.
When it came to, I was a great listener, but when it came to conflict, I turned into just not a good thing, not a good person. So I had to learn to be selfless, and it was very hard, because I had to be vulnerable in a situation that didn't feel safe for me. But then I learned that responding and being vulnerable was more powerful than thinking that you have control, because you really don't have control over the situation at all. Then the latter, then gorging on the fruit, not looking towards the root system. And the more that I did that, a soft answer turneth away wrath. That's not just a Christian thing.
Bible verse, yeah.
That is a life thing. That you can be a believer or a non-believer and give a soft answer to see that it totally takes the situation down. And that's what I learned. It's very hard for me even today to do that. It's very hard for me to swallow my pride, not get defensive and protect myself, but more so to be able to be selfless and crawl into the other person, see the other person,
Yeah.
connect with the other person, let the other person know that I value them. Jesus.
Yeah.
Be Jesus in the situation. And then I've learned, 10 times out of 10. I'll say 9 times out of 10, because then you just get those people that are just so broken, and they don't want to resolve conflict.
Yeah.
They just, for the sake of, and then that type of situation you need to back out of and just shut it down. But 9 times out of 10, when the person, they were shocked that I didn't react to them, but I responded. And then they were shocked that they had the space to share. And then they were shocked when I didn't just wait for them to tell me and then defend myself.
Yeah.
When I actually would just be like, wow, I can see that. I'm sorry. So it's actually giving grace, even when I might not have felt like I did anything wrong and I wasn't coming from that. I was shown, my therapist was like, you got to understand that people matter. In that moment, what's more important, being right or being merciful and gracious?
Well, that's good. Yeah. I love that question. It's, do you want to be right or do you want the relationship? And that, because I think that like, even with that soft answer, it diffuses the pressure that the anger is amassing. And so a lot of times if you look at like, okay, if I'm in conflict with somebody I'm in a relationship with on any level, like we don't want to be in, we don't want to fight each other. Otherwise we wouldn't be friends. Otherwise we wouldn't be, partners or spouses, or like we wouldn't be in those places relationally doing life together if we just wanted to fight each other all the time. And so when we are in conflict, we're both kind of like, what are they going to do? Like, what are we good? Like, but we're in defense mode because they're coming at us and we're coming at them. And so just one person taking that higher road and saying, okay, wait a minute, let me breathe out this puffed up intensity, right? Or on the flip side, let me come out of the turtle shell and show up, because I'm one that would shut down in conflict. Like where you're saying you would walk over, like speak over, I would just shut down. And where one can be a voice that is overpowering, one can be a voice that is absent.
Yeah.
And both of those do damage to the relationship. Both of those do damage to the friendships. Because the core of that is, my desire is that we are together in this thing called life. What other relationship it is. My desire is that you're my people. Like, so when we're in this conflict, it's scary because it means, okay, wait a minute, what is this? And then we have our own stuff that we come from. And so one voice tries to control, one voice shuts down.
Right.
And so it does take a lot of pause in those moments. And honestly, I think a lot of the work around communication has to happen between conflicts. We have to learn our own communication style. We have to learn our own fault lines that easily shift when the heat rises.
Right.
We have to learn our belief systems around conflict. Most of the time people think conflict is bad. Conflict is a bridge.
Yeah.
When it is done well, it's never easy, but when it is done well, it builds relationship. It's a bridge that goes from one point to the other point, that builds trust, that says we can hash out the hard stuff because we're people.
Yeah.
We're not the same individual here. And so we can hash out the hard stuff and know that we're safe.
Yeah.
Know that okay, we're in solid relationship at 70-degree temperature, but as soon as it hits 72, you're out.
Right.
So we're always like walking on those eggshells, keeping it at 70, 71. We get really fearful. And then 72, we shut down our control because this is the time when we go out. Right. And so a lot of times when we have the overpowering, controlling voices, it's a desire, and you can speak to this on kind of your experience, but it's a desire to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you will hear me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to speak louder.
Right.
Whereas the desire, whenever the shutdown is, I want to be heard and you're not hearing me. So there's no value.
Right.
to keep talking.
Right.
So it comes, but that desire is, I want to be known. I want to be heard. I want to be seen, because I want that safety there. And that, I think, is the hard thing of communication, is we have to not devalue that, not dismiss that, but strategically place that in the circumstance that's happening. Because oftentimes we've got to be willing to say, okay, sometimes with certain personalities, in order to be heard, I need to hear.
Yeah.
Because if I just keep trying to be heard, I'm never going to be heard.
Right.
But if I can stop and say, okay, how can I hear you?
Right.
Then it softens them and they're able to hear more.
And that's very hard, right? Because it's not like there's no quick fix to it. Like, everything takes time, and you might not get maybe what you feel like hearing is, because there has to be a mutual understanding. Where's this other person at? Equal yoking. We'll talk about that later.
He said equally yoking. He said it so fast.
So it's like, there has to be like a mutual understanding. How do you get to that mutual understanding? Through awareness, through mentoring, through accountability. We're going to keep coming around to all of these things. It's like this. It's like these equations of life that are going to keep circling, that you all are going to continue to hear.
Yeah.
And then it's challenging between knowing that you're coming from two different, as a male and a female, there's two different languages being spoken. I don't care who you are or what you say or what you think. There are two different languages: understanding love language, understanding trauma language, understanding mental language, understanding it all. There's a huge importance in truly going to a root system. That is a relationship. There's truth in that. You can't just gorge yourself on the fruit and be surface in relationship, because that's not conducive to yourself and the other person. Well, Sharif, how people aren't safe, and yeah, I understand that. But to be selfless and to go into a root system, wanting to crawl into a root system with somebody, there are some people that can. There are tons of people that can't. And then that's how you know. Yeah. And it's not because somebody's bad or good. It's because, okay, my heart, my being, my root system will not be stewarded well by this person, because they have no ground for it. They have no understanding and knowledge on how to steward my treasure well, casting my pearls among swine. Not that, but they're not going to steward your heart well. Or are you going to steward their heart well? There's more to be seen to this life than people realize. And we're not being taught that, as you and I, because when we were talking about covenant, it's another thing we're going to talk about. People don't understand covenant. And all of these things, all of these principles aren't necessarily about Christianity and a church. Yeah. They are life principles. Yeah. God didn't, create the world with a church and a pulpit and a pastor and everything. That's not what was created. What was created was life. And there was principles, and there was a way that life went. Yeah. There was a way that we treated each other in the principles.
And when we do that well, we get to experience the things like church.
Right.
We get to experience community and mentorship, like we've talked about before.
Right.
We get to experience those things relationally, covenant. We get to experience those from a place that is more malleable. Like we're not just so stuck. The Bible talks about a heart of flesh to a heart of stone, or a heart of stone to a heart of flesh. Right. Like there is such a immovable aspect to our root systems of trauma and experiences and fears and selfishness and all of those things that will put us flat-footed in the middle of self-righteousness. I am right, and this is the only place, my way or highway.
Right.
And I think that that is where it is so vital to be able to learn the differences amongst people, because when you do have people who are immovable and you're casting pearls before swine and you're just like, you know, basically this, they're not going to steward my heart and what I need. They're not going to try to hear me. The answer is not to rush in and make them.
Yeah.
Or to lose yourself in the process because it's not valuable anyway, type of belief system.
Right.
It is to stand on truth and stand on security in who you are identity-wise in Christ.
Yeah.
I think that is a big part of communication, is we are trying to communicate as the other person. We're trying to communicate for the other person.
Yeah.
Instead of as ourself, for ourself,
Right.
rooted in Christ, that says, here's where I stand. Because if there's no secure platforms for both of you to come together and stand on, then how can you build a bridge?
Right.
Right? How can you do the work of building something together?
Yeah.
If I'm trying to get on your platform all the time to try to be you or act like you or communicate for you because I feel responsible for you, then what? I've just abandoned my platform.
Right.
So then I'm meeting you with instability.
Right.
Instead of a stable platform that says, okay, here's where I come from. Where do you come from? And let's hash that out securely, safely, maturely,
Right.
withholding that space for the emotions and fears and everything that come with it because of those root systems. That's that beauty of, help me understand you. I want to understand you.
Right.
Or even asking the question, how can I help you understand what you might be missing?
Yeah.
You know, or what is it that you feel like you are not hearing from me?
Yeah.
Like, those questions are so powerful, but how many times in conflict can we do a whole lot of detective work and not find one question
Right.
that is actual helpful questioning, other than just like the defensive questioning of like, well, you know, if you were going to say this, or, you know, what do you think I'm, you know, like those kind of accusatory questions. But it's so massive to do that. And I think that, you know, going back to kind of your point about the men-women dynamic, let's really talk about that, of like, you as a man's perspective, what your thoughts are on how communication can differ.
I think for me as a man, when we talked about this today, I knew earlier on, because of my root system and where I came from, that I didn't have like a firm foundation on who a woman was. Mm-hmm. I couldn't recognize a woman. I couldn't truly define a woman. Mm-hmm. I had my own skewed view of how I was raised and how I saw the treatment on both parties. Mm-hmm. And then society was grooming me and programming my mind as a young male of color. Mm-hmm. And then music, movies, like everything. So I knew that I had this skewed view of that there had to be more than what I was looking at. And so I prayed and said, I need you to show me who a woman is. And I'm still on that journey. That's a lifelong journey. Yeah. But what I've learned is that there's definitely two different languages. We're two different beings. Mm-hmm. But the beauty in that is because we fit together like a puzzle piece, mm-hmm. like a hand in glove. We fit together, but we're so different for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think it's a gift. It's for relationship. Mm-hmm. And I began to know the different languages. And I'm still learning as a lot of the times when men and women fight, like I learned that it's like 1 degree
yes.
of misunderstanding.
Yes, like if you just align
it's all the pressure and all the whatever you're going through, and then if you just I learned I had to be selfless, and God took me through some really hard spaces of being selfless and being patient. You're not going to get it. It might take you a year. It might take you 6 or 7 months to get to the heart of being able to hear, close your mouth, be a sponge, listen, And then when I began to listen, I began to hear the heart of a woman. I began to hear the heart of like my female friends. I began to hear the heart of women out in the public. Actually began to see like tons of injustice. I actually began to see like, whoa, you know. And when I did that, and then I could come across as, hey, help me understand. Because I'm not going to sit here and pretend I understand your language. What did you mean? And the response that I got from that was just changing night and day, because they felt seen.
Yeah.
And it was like shocking to them that a man was like, wait, you're going to listen? And so then when I did that, which it took me a while, I didn't have it perfect, but I had to like destroy my pride and destroy my defense and destroy all of these things to know that, you know, there were times where I was getting in fights and literally was so confused because a woman could like make you feel so confused. Like, wait a second, I don't know what's going on anymore. Is this my fault? This is my, you know what I'm saying? But that it just didn't work. So when I closed my mouth and I listened and I crawled into the root system, I got the revelation of, oh, we're saying the same thing. We're just saying it differently. That's what you meant? Okay, well, I meant it that. Oh, you meant it that way? Yeah. And then like a lot of the fighting stopped because there was a root system understanding and I could be patient and respond. When I responded, it was totally different. A lot of the times at work, there are some times where it was just like there was no trust for me because I was just that very thing that they were nervous of. But for the most part, I had to learn. How did I learn that? I put myself down. I became a servant, listened to understand the language of the heart of a woman, of the mind of a woman, in all things of joking and laughing and seriousness and brokenness and hurting and anger and frustration. I had to listen to some real hard stuff, about what women thought of me, you know, and just everything in the world. But I learned to like, okay, you know. So once I did that, and I'm still doing that, and I didn't get it perfect, and I don't get it right, and I'm not always patient, but for the majority of the time, you have to be selfless. Love me. If I want to love you and meet you where you're at, Jesus was the prime example of that. I gotta love, and I've got to be right with God. I've got to be willing. Like, I remember I was in a relationship and God blew me away because this person was not being nice or kind. And we were just banging heads. And God's like, what makes you think that you can navigate through her oceans? I'm the navigator.
That's good.
You're on this ship thinking you can navigate, and you keep running right into her, you know, into her perfect storms. I can navigate you through that. And so when I started going to him, to God, and surrendering, and I was taking hits that hurt. I mean, going back and weeping in the other room because it hurt so bad. But I was being obedient to Christ. God worked on her heart. And then she came back to me and said, I want to, you know, so it's really a selfless act as a man to truly understand, and as a woman to truly understand, or as adults to understand children, or as understanding different cultures, or as understanding different strangers and people. We must be selfless and to go to the root system. So that was the difference and hey, when we speak, it's just personally for me. That's what the Spirit was telling me. And that was like, and I've read tons of books. One of my favorite books was Captivating. I've read that book like 7 times. In the beginning when I was just starting. So that's what it was to me. If you truly want to understand something, then you seek it and you're quiet and you listen.
Yeah, I think that there's so much goodness in that, Sharif. And I think that what really stands out to me is how you stop trying to navigate on your own, but you really asked God, how do I navigate her? You know, and I think that's just massive. That's massive. And I think that so many of us have to stop playing God.
Yeah.
Like, we do not know, like, literally, I cannot know truly. I can intuitively assess and deduce, but I cannot truly know what you are thinking, feeling, needing, other than what you communicate to me. And then half the time, what you're communicating to me could be laced with fear. It could be manipulative. It could be not true. It could be true. Like, I truly don't know. And so, but God does. And so, whenever I am interacting with you as a human being, my first inquiry has to be, God, help me navigate this person. You know their heart. Reveal to me what they are really needing, as well as me asking them, hey, what do you need from me right now? That is massive. That question alone. What do you need from me right now? Like, talk about safety, right? To diffuse that pressure
And mean it.
and truly mean
And
it. Yeah.
truly mean it.
Because that requires that selflessness that you're talking about. And what I hear also is the selflessness of not losing yourself,
Yeah.
but thinking of yourself less. Like, I forget where it is in the New Testament, but it talks about thinking of yourself the appropriate amount.
Yep.
It's you shouldn't think of yourself more highly than you ought to.
Right.
And that ought to part is you should think of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That's
because
important.
you are amongst humanity and
Yeah.
God tells you to do things and asks you to do things, and you have a life and a calling, kingdom mindset, but don't think too highly of yourself, more than you ought to. And I think that that's where we have to learn.
That's good, Jenna.
Selflessness. I'm going to think of myself less in this, but not think of myself.
Right.
And so when we do that, okay, if I'm thinking of myself less, and I say, what do I really want from this person? Well, I want relationship with them. I love them. I want to be heard. I want to be known. Okay, well, then let's take a strategic approach to do that. Hurting them is not going to get them to love you. And controlling them, hiding from them, those are hurting them.
Yeah.
And so when we can step in and say, God, what needs to happen here?
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, how powerful could it be even if we learned as humans who are especially believers to stop and pray? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, wait, this is going off track. Can we just pray for a second?
Yeah.
And Lord, just come in to this situation and give us clarity.
That was a massive thing. That was the thing that everybody should do. Didn't mean to interrupt, but what you just said there was amazing.
Yeah.
Before any conversation where it is difficult,
Yep.
you both need to sit down and usher in the Holy Spirit, surrender to God, surrender to Jesus, and allow it. And that conversation will be, even at its depth of difficultness, it's a different thing when you honor God and makes that. So I just wanted to say that is amazing you said that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And I think that that's just where we can really see, like, okay, what is it that I really want here? Is it the relationship or to be right? You know, and I think too, like, kind of on the flip side, from a woman's perspective, you know, I think so much of communication with womanhood has been kind of on a merry-go-round.
Yeah.
Right? You know, we've had so much of that. Just, you have the different dynamics of it, right? This could be a whole other episode, but, you know, a lot of women come from that it's a man's world, so don't have a voice. Others come from, you know, it's a man's world, so can't beat him, join him. So really make, you know, I am woman, hear me roar. Others come from the spiritually abused, like, you have to just be completely quiet, can't have a voice. Some have,
which that's not biblical.
No, that's why it's spiritually abused. Like, that's no. You know, and some, like, there's so many angles to that. And I think that because women are wired for nurturing and for relationship, and men are wired for that as well, but women in their fabric is the nurturing, relational minded, and men are the providing, working, like not working 10 to 5 job type of thing, but like, working for the family, protecting, leading, providing, and so, and even the curse, right? The curse on Adam and Eve, like basically Adam's going to be working and it's not really going to ever go right, right?
Yeah.
And then women are going to want their husbands and have hardship in relationships.
Yeah.
And so we carry these hard things about the curse. And so we have to fight against that in the sense of really letting God in and saying, God, this is already going to be the friction that we're dealing with on a human realm.
Right.
And so beyond that, then asking for that extra level of strength and understanding of how do I interact with this dynamic. And so kind of wrapping that around to what I was saying is women have this need for relationship, especially with their men, and especially with the men in their lives, even if it's not just their romantic partner men, but they have this need to be known and seen and protected and covered and loved and held space for. Not that they can't do all of life's things, but nurturing relationally, we don't want to be the ones that are stepping in to the leadership realm and saying like, hey, let me lead our whole family. Like, and there are some women out there that do, and that's fine. This is definitely a different, there's so many women on different spectrums, but like, I truly believe just at the heart of a woman, she wants to just have the piece of a relationship to nurture and to love and bring life to. And to be able to have that safety where she can go and do the things that she loves to do, whether that is career, whether that is accomplishment, adventure, all the things.
Yeah.
But when women are stuck trying to just communicate, like just to be heard, can we just, like, I don't know how many women who are my clients and also just women I've talked to and women I've read about and heard, they just struggle to feel and be heard.
Yeah.
And that's from each other, from the world collectively, from men, and I think that that's where so much of this self-protected femininity has really been lost, where they just are like,
Right.
well, forget it. I'm
well,
going to
men
just,
are
you
men
will.
are, but men are going through the same thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But here's the fallout. If men don't know, if we don't know who we are, how in the world can we be for you?
Right. And that's
And it's
exactly
and vice
the
versa.
other way,
If
yeah.
women don't know who they are, how in the world? I'm not a theologian.
Yeah.
I have a relationship, and I am surrounded by theologians and mentors. And I remember God showed me, and a lot of my mentors, if it all fails, go to the beginning.
Yeah.
So I always go to the beginning, and it says, "Let us create them in our image, both male and female." Even when we get to the curse, right? God can't redo what he started. So even though we had the curse, we can still get to what was birthed in the garden. It takes work.
Yeah.
But that doesn't go away just because of what happened. God's purpose for creation is still there.
Yeah.
Jesus came, redemption. We can still get to the garden.
Yeah.
Is there toil? Is there hardships that we have to go through? Yes, but there's redemption. Right. So that's just really what I've been learning is this, like, life is much more. And I know that women probably cringe when they heard you talk about the nurturing and the heart of a woman. And what you need to understand is you have to take the words and what you hear and not put them in the box of broken society, broken people, and an expectancy of society, man's religion. You need to take it to the source of truth and reality of creation. Look at creation. Look at all of creation and the nurturing and it's powerful.
Yeah.
Nothing is weak. Nothing is undermined. It just, I know that there's been tons of injustice in that, but you can't be a lesser thing. Man doesn't have the power to make you less than, even in the actions.
Yeah.
You can't change a thing. I can chop a tree up, I can burn it, I can do whatever. It still came from a tree. It is still that thing. You can't change it. You can't change anything. You can grind it up. It is still that thing. So a woman is very much powerful in who she is and who she was created to be. It's understanding that. Man is same thing. Man is a leadership. I see man as a leadership in what Jesus did. Jesus didn't come down here swords blazing and dominate. Mm-mm. Jesus came and was the first to serve. Yeah. He went low. He washed feet. He healed. He took care of the need. He wasn't this rock star. He was like a normal person. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't have known it, right? So it's just kind of like that thing. It's like, that's what I see as a man. Yeah. Not coming in with, I'm stronger than you and better than you, but coming in and saying, I love you. How can I serve you? Yeah. What can I do? I want to understand you. I want to understand your root system. There's respect and honor who you are and your thought process and your power and nurturing and your wisdom and understanding life. And, we see I know it's cliche, but the Proverbs 31, she wasn't like this little broken thing over in the corner. Like, she was powerful. Her husband was at the gates bragging on her. Yeah. She was known in all the community. She had a business. She was selling and buying of land and silks and product. And her kids were boasting. Her kids were, she got up and prayed early in the morning. She had servant. I mean, what part of that is, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I love that. And I think that, she was not striving.
No.
And I think that when you said earlier, like, if a man doesn't know who he is, like, how can he be that for the woman, and vice versa? If she doesn't, like, she kind of operated, not kind of, she operated out of who she knew she was. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the picture of the identity has to be in check first so that we can thrive.
Right.
Because if we do not know who we are in Christ and we are trying to find who we are in human, then we will strive for what we have to do to make it work.
Right.
And, it's because I know a lot of women have said, like, that's an exhausting life. Like, it is, but that wasn't all in a day. Like, we look at a snapshot of the Proverbs 31 woman, right? Yeah. But that was a life. And so that come from an identity. And I think that what you said a minute ago about the tree, I think was really interesting, because I think, the tree, it's still a tree, but it's been altered so much. And I think that men and women in the hands of humans, absent from God's leading and guiding and navigating and wisdom and love, when we are just selfishly approaching relationship to get, then we put our hands on that. Yeah. Women, we put our hands on our men. We sink our talons in. Men, you put your hands on the women,
right,
to try to get, and we try to get. In the hands of human, we will alter our original state. Right. And a tree that has been cut down and demolished up cannot bear fruit anymore.
No.
It only bears fruit when it remains its true identity.
Right.
And so when we lose sight of our identity, we will absolutely not communicate properly to each other. And we won't be able to sit in the conversations that are hard. Even this conversation, Sharif, is hard because there's so many layers to it, right? And there's the dynamics of men and hearing things, you cringe at, because the things that we cringe at are attached to the fear of. Right. I don't, wait, because that means if I do that, then I'm going to be chopped up and diced up as a woman. So I got to stay in this masculine shield of uber strength, but then we forfeit our femininity, right? Or vice versa with masculinity aspect. Yeah. And so there's just, my point in that is we have to have identity and set first.
Yeah.
And then communication is about truly not just coming at it as the approach of self seeking,
That's right.
but thinking of self less and really being able to say, okay, we might not solve this in one conversation, right? We're not going to have the answers in 50 minutes of podcast of communication. So really just being able to have that, like, let's just talk about it and let's see where that goes.
Definitely a journey. And just to say one quick thing, in being selfless in that communication, there is a time in that conversation where, the person might not be healthy enough. And after you have like really heard them and had a conversation, then you can ask, can I speak? Can I share my heart with you about how I'm feeling now?
Yeah.
And guiding them
Yeah.
in that. And you do that enough times, then, I'm not saying just, sit there and take the blows. I'm saying start the mode, be a servant. That's what a leadership does.
Yeah.
That's what God showed me. As a man, show a woman, serve her, listen to her, really listen. Give the space for her, and then watch what happens when you ask for your heart to be heard.
That's so good.
Because then she'll be like, he listened first to me and to my heart. He saw me, he connected with me. And then that nurture kicks in. Yes, I want to, hear, or I don't know how to do that, or I'm scared. It's just like this learning journey, and it takes time. I just didn't want to sit there to say that you're supposed to just be selfless and take the hit, but you need to be selfless. Have the conversation, open it up, serve, and then, hey, can you listen to my heart?
Yeah.
I really want to share, but you don't do that for the sake of hear them and then, oh, you ready to listen to my heart? No, like really get to a point of understanding where they feel comfortable, and then then share your heart and respond to that. So
that's so good. And women have to let we have to let the guys, women, like ladies, we've got to like let that be a thing, because so many times we rush in to try to control the situation, to try to make it go the way our nurturing can turn into controlling very easily. Yeah. And so we've got to be able to be in that space and let the men show up the way that we want them to show up. And sometimes that takes space and time to do that. Yeah. And that takes trusting God, staying in your identity, and letting him be dealt with by God. Right. And invite him to lead versus dictate how he's supposed to lead. Right.
And vice versa. Yeah. Don't dictate her and tell her how she's supposed to be. Open the space up and hear her.
And both need to show up.
Right, show up.
Like show up and be fully present. But present, secure in your own identity.
That's right. That's good. Not just present to be present, but the confidence of who you are, and to be able to hear the hard things, even if they're not true. Even if that's not what you meant, but to be able to lay that down and hear their heart, vice versa. A woman hearing a man's heart, a man hearing a woman's heart, their response. And it's not an easy walk, but if you guys usher God in and your root system, if my heart is, I want to understand her, and I want to be a mode of healing and safety for her, then you're always going to be at a mode. If that's your agenda, and if her agenda is, I want the same for his heart. I want his heart to be safe. I want to nurture him and support him. If both of you are thinking in that mindset, right, that's where we need to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's selfless, but still balancing in your identity in Christ and in your, any other way. But that relationally is for friendships. Yeah. That is for, whether it's male friendships and female friendships, or male and female, that is like the staple of communication that needs to be happening when you're talking with somebody in business, or when you're, whatever it is. That is a staple, to be able to think of the other person and just be, Yeah. And if it's not that way, then it's okay to step away, set boundaries, right? So
yeah, I think curiosity and compassion have to lead for healthy communication.
That's right. It's good.
Otherwise, we just go in guns blazing.
Yeah.
Dictating and defending.
How's that been working for us for centuries? Nope.
Not so much.
Not so much. Well, everybody, we are so happy that you joined us today. There never seems to be enough time.
I know, right?
We only have so much time.
I know. We have so many more episodes coming, though.
Yeah,
and make sure to follow, like, subscribe, share, all the things. We just want to be able to just be a light and shed some light on just experiencing Jesus's love where you're at.
Yeah.
And so share with your friends, comment. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Your thoughts. This was a dicey one today, so we might get some hate.
Yeah. And hey, like, as we are a faith-based podcast, but we invite everyone to be heard and to see, because love meets you where you're at. And, there's definitely like no doors shut and slammed. We are all human beings. We are all creations of the mighty God, and we are all connected no matter who you are. So I am Sharif Aman.
Jenna Barbosa.
This is Love Speak Revolution. It is about revelation and relationship, but this is Love Speak Revelation. Right, I said it again. This is Love Speak Revolution.
Love meets you where you're at.
Bye.